Hello, today we're going to look at how to form the vocative clitiki of names, first names and surnames ending in os. However, before that, we need to explain briefly two things that are necessary to properly understand what is going on with the vocative of first names and surnames in os. So, the rule for nouns and adjectives in os, like for instance, kalos, σωστός, γρήγορος, δρόμος, οδός, and this includes also not only the masculine ones but also the feminine ones like η οδός, is that the vocative is in e. So let's have some examples. Θεός becomes θεέ, σκύλος becomes σκύλε, and δρόμος becomes δρόμε. Now of course there are many objects like ποταμός, δρόμος, οδός, άνοδος, κάθοδος that end in os, but it's very unlikely you will meet the vocative of these words outside maybe poetry. So obviously the most common words you will find in the vocative are names of people like Yorgos, Nikos, Christos, etc. And this is where it's a bit trickier. But before we look at that, because of the way grammar books classify these words, we have to explain how the stress is called in Greek. So in Greek words, the stress can go in three places, and only three usually. It can go on the last syllable. I mark it with an 1. So we start to count from the end. So go from right to left, not left to right, but right to left. So in this case, los in Papadopoulos would be the last syllable, and then we have the penultimate. Ultimate means last, so penultimate means one before the last would be pou, and before that we add to the previous word ante, so it's ante penultimate. Tho, Papadopoulos, that would be the third syllable from the end. You can also call it, the last one, the second from the end, and the third from the end. It's the same thing. In this case, this word Papadopoulos is stressed on the third from the end, the penultimate syllable, the antepenultimate, I'm sorry. And these kind of classifications, words classified by the stress, is quite important in Greek, because it matters for nouns, as we'll see now, but also matters for verbs. It matters as how we classify verbs. So first of all, we have a very big group of first names that are only two syllables. They are stressed on the second from the end, and they end in os. So Yorgos, Nikos, Tassos, Christos, etc., etc. Now, most of these, not all, most of these names are shorter versions of older words. For instance, Yorgos would be Georgios in the past, or also on your ID card. Nikos would be Nikolaos. Tassos would be Anastasios. And whereas the old name retains the old traditional vocative ending in e, so Georgios, Georgie, Nikolaos, Nikolae, Anastasios, Anastasiae retains the ending you would find in ancient Greek as well. The shorter versions become in all, like Yorgos, Yorgo, Nikos, Niko, Tassos, Tasso. Now, there is often an exception mentioned in relation to this group of words, like Pavlos can be formed, right here, in both ways, right? But it's important to know that Pavlos is not the shorter version of anything. Pavlos is Pavlos. That's the original form. So it makes sense that it can be both Pavlo and Pavle. And actually Pavle might be slightly preferred by, let's say, official documents, educated people, etc. Anyway, so again, keep in mind these words, these names are shorter versions, and as such, shorter versions are treated this way. So Yorgos becomes Yorgo. However, we also have to look at surnames, and surnames um, are a bit harder to look at. First of all, in the usual grammars you have, like let's say the scholastic grammars, the grammars you have at school, they're usually not mentioned. You have to look at the more academic, let's say, grammar books, maybe things you have at university. And I can guarantee you that even for the first names, let alone the surnames, most people are not aware of the rules. They just use them the way they're used in language by native speakers, but they don't have any kind of any kind of rule in mind. They do it right because they're Greek. So here is where the breakup in the three groups becomes very important when we're looking at the surnames. So surnames you can break also in three groups. So first group, they are stressed on the last syllable. Xynos, xyne. In the case of words that are stressed on the last syllable, words in os, of course, like our example xynos, the vocative will be ine. So it happens the old traditional way. There is no problem with that. There is also no problem with the words, and there are many of them, the surnames that are stressed on the third syllable from the end. Like my own surname, Michalopoulos, or many other similar surnames like Papadopoulos, Kostopoulos, etc. All these will form the vocative ine. Michalopoulos, Michalopoulos, Papadopoulos, Papadopoulos, Kostopoulos, Kostopoulos. The problem is with the words that are stressed on the second syllable. Now, according to, if I remember correctly, it was a Triantafyllides grammar, Triantafyllides being the most influential grammarian in Greece in the 20th century. But keep in mind, his grammar is quite old. If I remember correctly, it was a product of the 1930s, so was almost a century old. In any case, his recommendation, his rule rather, was that these words that are stressed on the second syllable, like Venizelos, these surnames rather than words, should have should follow the same rule as names like Yorgos, Nikostasos, and form the vocative in all. Okay, so Venizelos, Venizelos. However, in practice, you will hear many people saying Venizele, so they don't really follow this rule. And we have a kind of a blind spot here. In any case, that's all about the names, first names, and surnames in the vocative. Hope it was useful, and see you all soon.